A chance encounter in an elevator. A billionaire CEO, a woman with nothing to lose. When fate brings them together again years later, their worlds collide in ways neither expected. Hey there, romance lovers. Tonight we dive into a world where every choice has a cost and every moment matters. Shall we step into it? The morning rain hammered against the glass walls of Sterling Communications like bullets against armor. Emma Sterling pressed the elevator button for the 15th time. Her worn leather portfolio clutched against her chest like a shield. Inside lay the presentation that would either save her career or destroy it completely. Her second-hand blazer clung to her shoulders, soaked through despite her umbrella. The reflection staring back from the polished elevator doors showed smudged mascara and desperation she couldn't quite hide. At 26, Emma had learned that dreams were luxuries she couldn't afford. Not with her father's medical bills mounting and her studio apartment's rent due in 3 days. The elevator dinged. She stepped inside, grateful for a moment of solitude. Before facing another day of being invisible to executives who treated her like expensive furniture. Floor 20. The doors opened. Vincent Kane stepped inside. Emma's breath caught. Everyone in the building knew Vincent Kane, the 34-year-old tech mogul who had built Kane Industries from a college dorm room into a global empire worth billions. His face graced business magazine covers with that same confident expression, suggesting he owned not just companies, but the very air around him. In person, he was devastating. Tall and lean with dark hair that looked perfectly styled. Despite the early hour, eyes the color of winter storms that seemed to see everything at once. His charcoal suit probably cost more than Emma made in 3 months. Vincent glanced at the floor buttons, then at Emma. The 35th floor, meeting with the big bosses. Odd heat rose in Emma's cheeks. Presentation. Hopefully not my last one. Something in her tone caught his attention. Vincent studied her more carefully. Nervous. Terrified would be more accurate. The words escaped before Emma could stop them. She immediately regretted the honesty showing weakness to someone like Vincent Kane felt like bleeding in shark-infested waters. But instead of the dismissive smirk she expected, Vincent smiled. It transformed his entire face, making him seem almost human. What's the presentation about? Emma hesitated. Vincent Kane's opinion could make or break careers with a single word. But something in his expression seemed genuinely interested. A campaign proposal for your new educational software platform. I had some ideas about reaching underserved communities. The elevator climbed steadily. Vincent moved closer. Tell me one idea. Just one. Emma's mind raced. This was her chance, possibly her only chance. Mobile learning units. Converted buses. That could bring the software directly to rural areas and low-income neighborhoods. The technology exists, but the implementation needs to be community-focused, not corporate-focused. Vincent went quiet. The elevator passed floor 30. Brilliant, he said finally. Why hasn't anyone else thought of that? Maybe they have. But I'm probably the only person in this building who grew up in one of those underserved communities. Floor 32, floor 33, their time was running out. What's your name? Vincent asked. Emma Sterling? Sterling? Like the building? Emma laughed, surprising them both with its warmth. No relation. Just an unfortunate coincidence that makes everyone assume I'm connected to money I don't have. Floor 34. Vincent pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then looked up at her. Emma Sterling, would you have dinner with me tonight? The question hit like a physical force. Vincent Kane was asking her to dinner. Vincent Kane, who dated supermodels and actresses. Who appeared on lists of the world's most eligible bachelors. I don't understand. Dinner, food, conversation, usually happens around 7 in the evening. I know what dinner is. I just don't understand why you're asking me. The elevator reached floor 35. The doors began to open. Vincent placed his hand against the door. Because in 3 minutes, you've shown me more genuine intelligence and passion than I've encountered in months of board meetings. Because you made me remember why I started my company in the first place. Emma stepped out, her mind spinning. Mr. Kane, I appreciate the offer, But I don't date clients or potential clients or anyone who could affect my career. Wasn't a client? Then you'd just be a billionaire and I'd still be a marketing assistant who shops at thrift stores? Vincent's smile widened. What if I told you I also shopped at thrift stores until I was 28? I'd say you have. An excellent tailor now. Other people were gathering, waiting for the elevator, but Vincent seemed oblivious to everything except Emma. Dinner, he said again. Not a date, not a business meeting. Just two people sharing a meal and conversation. Emma looked at this. Man who could buy and sell companies on a whim, who was currently holding up an elevator in his own building just to talk to her? Something in his eyes seemed almost vulnerable, as if her answer mattered more than it should. Okay, she heard herself saying, but somewhere normal. No five-star restaurants or places that require reservations months in advance. I know just the place, Vincent said, stepping back. Meet me in the lobby at 7. The elevator doors closed, leaving Emma staring at her reflection in polished metal. Had Vincent Kane really just asked her to dinner? She really said yes? The restaurant Vincent chose was a small Italian place tucked between a bookstore and a vintage clothing shop in Greenwich Village. Checkered tablecloths, candles stuck in wine bottles, and absolutely no resemblance to where Emma imagined billionaires typically dined. The owner, a round man with flour-dusted hands, greeted Vincent like an old friend. Vincent, my boy, your usual table? As they settled into a worn leather corner booth, Emma watched Vincent transform. The corporate titan who commanded boardrooms had been replaced by someone more relaxed, more human. He ordered wine without consulting a sommelier, asked about the owner's grandchildren. It seemed genuinely interested in Emma's thoughts on everything from the restaurant's faded photographs to her favorite books. I discovered this place during my first year in the city, Vincent explained as they waited for their food. I was living in a studio apartment smaller than most people's closets, surviving on instant noodles and dreams. Oh, Mario here used to let me wash dishes in exchange for real meals. Emma studied his face, searching for deception. It's hard to imagine you ever being anything other than successful. Success is just failure that hasn't quit yet. Vincent raised his glass. My first 3 business ventures collapsed spectacularly. I was 25, broke, and living on my friend's couch when I came up with the idea that eventually became Kane Industries. Their pasta arrived, and Emma found herself relaxing despite her initial nervousness. Vincent asked thoughtful questions about her background, her goals, her perspective on the marketing industry. He listened with the kind of focused attention that made her feel like the only person in the room. Tell me about your family, Vincent said as they shared dessert that Mario had insisted was on the house. Emma's smile faltered. It's just my father and me. My mother died when I was 16. Dad's been battling cancer for the past 2 years. I'm sorry, Vincent said, his sympathy genuine rather than politely automatic. That must be incredibly difficult. He's a fighter. Always has been, but the medical bills. Emma trailed off, realizing she was sharing more than intended. I'm sorry. You don't need to hear about my financial problems. Vincent leaned forward, his voice gentle. Everyone has struggles. Money doesn't make you immune to pain or loss, just changes the nature of your problems. They talked until the restaurant began to empty, until Mario started stacking chairs and giving them meaningful looks. Vincent walked her to the subway station, and Emma found herself wishing the evening didn't have to end. This was lovely, she said, meaning it more than she cared to admit. Would you like to do it again? Tomorrow night? Emma hesitated. One dinner could be explained as curiosity or impulse. 2 dinners suggested something more intentional, more dangerous. Vincent, I need you to understand something. I can't afford to get involved with someone like you, someone like me, someone who could destroy my career with a phone call, someone who lives in a world I don't understand, someone who's going to get bored with me the moment he realizes I'm exactly as ordinary as I appear. Vincent was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, that same warm smile that had surprised her in the elevator. Emma Sterling, you are many things, but ordinary is not one of them. And as for destroying your career, he pulled out his phone, showed her a message. I've already sent a recommendation to your department head. Your mobile learning unit proposal is being funded. Going to lead the project? Emma stared at the phone, then at Vincent. Can't just do that. I just did. Before you accuse me of trying to buy your affection, I made this decision before I asked you to dinner. Your idea is brilliant and deserves to be implemented. Don't know what to say? Say you'll have dinner with me tomorrow. Not because I funded your project, but because you want to. Emma looked at this man who had somehow managed to change her life twice in one day. Against every rational instinct she possessed, she found herself nodding. Okay. But tomorrow, I choose. The restaurant. 3 weeks later, Emma's phone rang at 6 in the morning. Sophia's voice was tight with panic. Ah! You need to see the newspaper. Now? What newspaper? Sophia, what are you, page 6 of the Post? There's a photo of you and Vincent coming out of that French place in Soho last week. Emma's blood turned to ice. She could hear Sophia reading the headline through the phone. Kane's mystery woman, from rags to romance. Emma's hands shook as she stared at the newspaper photo. It was grainy, but unmistakable, Vincent's hand on her back as he guided her through the restaurant door, both of them smiling. The article dissected her life like a medical examiner performing an autopsy. Her tiny apartment, her father's illness, her sudden promotion within the company. Her phone buzzed with unknown numbers. Reporters, gossip bloggers, people who wanted to know how a nobody had caught the attention of one of the most powerful men in America. But work whispers followed her down hallways like smoke. Colleagues, who had never spoken to her before, suddenly wanted to be friends. Others avoided her entirely, as if her sudden notoriety was contagious. Miss Sterling? Her assistant knocked on her office door. There's a reporter from Business Weekly on line 3, and another from Vanity Fair holding on line 4. Ma buried her face in her hands. Tell them I'm unavailable. For how long? Forever? That evening, Vincent appeared at her apartment building. Emma found him in the lobby, looking strangely out of place among the chipped mailboxes and flickering fluorescent lights. Your doorman let me in, he said. I don't have a doorman, just a broken buzzer system. Vincent smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. We need to talk. Emma led him up 3 flights of stairs to her studio apartment, acutely aware of the peeling paint and the neighbor's television bleeding through thin walls. Vincent took in the space without judgment, the second-hand furniture, the stack of medical bills on her kitchen counter, the photograph of her mother beside a wilting plant. I'm sorry about the media attention, he said. I should have warned. You, this might happen, should have, or could have? Vincent's jaw tightened. What's that supposed to mean? It means I've been thinking about timing. How convenient that our relationship became public right when my project was approved. What makes me look like I slept my way to success? You think I orchestrated this? Emma crossed her arms. I think you're a very strategic man who doesn't leave much to chance. And I think you're letting paranoia destroy something real. Real? Emma laughed bitterly. What's real about this? You're Vincent Kane. I'm nobody. This is a fairy tale, and fairy tales don't exist in the real world. Vincent stepped closer, his eyes flashing with something dangerous. Don't tell me what's real. I've spent my entire adult life surrounded by people who want something from me. Money, connections, access. You're the first person in years who looked at me like I was just a man, maybe because I didn't know who you were. And maybe that's exactly why this matters. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken truths. Emma wanted to believe him, wanted to trust the vulnerability she glimpsed beneath his polished exterior. But trust was a luxury she had learned not to afford. I can't do this, she said finally. The attention, the speculation, the way people... Look at me now. I can't live in a fishbowl. Vincent nodded slowly. I understand. Do you know? But I respect your choice. He moved toward the door, then turned back. For what it's worth, Emma, you were never nobody to me. After he left, Emma sat on her second-hand couch and cried for the first time in months. Not for Vincent, but for the version of herself that had been brave enough to believe, even briefly, that she deserved something extraordinary. 6 months passed. Emma threw herself into the mobile learning project, traveling to rural communities and low-income neighborhoods, watching children's faces light up as they discovered worlds beyond their circumstances. The work fulfilled her in ways she hadn't Expected, but it couldn't fill the Vincent-shaped hole he had left behind. She avoided the business pages, declined interviews, and built walls around her heart that felt unbreachable. Then, on a Tuesday morning in March, her assistant knocked on her office door. "Miss Sterling, there's someone here to see you. He says it's urgent." Emma looked up from her reports to see a man in his 50s, impeccably dressed, with silver hair and calculating eyes. "Miss Sterling, I'm Richard Blackwood, Vincent Kane's business partner." He settled into the chair across from her desk without invitation. "We need to discuss your relationship with Vincent." "We don't have a relationship. It's not what our investigator found." Emma's blood chilled. "Your investigator?" Richard smiled, but it held no warmth. "Vincent has been funding your father's medical treatments for the past 6 months. Every bill, every procedure, every experimental treatment. Did you really think that was coincidence?" The words hit Emma like physical blows. Her father's sudden improvement, the new doctors, the treatments they somehow qualified for despite their lack of insurance. Vincent paid for everything, every penny, behind your back, while you believed you were maintaining your independence. Richard leaned forward. "The question is, Miss Sterling, what are you going to do about it?" Emma's world tilted sideways. The fluorescent lights above seemed to buzz louder, the walls of her office closing in as Richard Blackwood's words echoed in her mind. Vincent paid for everything. Every penny. Behind your back, Richard's smile was predatory. While you believed you were maintaining your independence. Emma gripped the edge of her desk. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Vincent is becoming a liability. His feelings for you are affecting his judgment, compromising business decisions that affect thousands of employees and millions in revenue." Richard straightened his tie. "I need you to end this. Permanently." "We already ended it. Not convincingly enough, apparently." "Vincent has been tracking your father's progress, your project's success, even your personal well-being through private investigators. He's obsessed." The room spun. Emma thought of her father's recent joy, his renewed hope, the color returning to his cheeks. All of it built on Vincent's money, Vincent's pity. "What do you want me to do? Hurt him publicly? Make him understand that you used him for his connections and now want nothing to do with him? Make it vicious enough that he'll finally move on. And if I refuse?" Richard's expression hardened. "The medical payments stop. Your project gets defunded. Your father dies, and you lose everything you've worked for." He stood, adjusting his cufflinks. "You have 48 hours to decide." That night, Emma sat beside her father's hospital bed, watching him sleep peacefully for the first time in months. The experimental treatment had reduced his tumors significantly. He looked healthier than he had in years. "Dad," she whispered. He opened his eyes, smiling when he saw her. "Emma, sweetheart, how was work?" "Good. Really good." She squeezed his hand. "Dad, do you ever regret the choices you made for me? Giving up your dreams so I could have opportunities?" "Never. Not once." His voice was stronger now, clearer. "Everything I did was worth it to see you become the woman you are today."
Emma's
throat tightened. "What if I told you I might have to do something terrible to protect you? I'd tell you that protecting your old man isn't worth destroying your soul." But as Emma walked home through the city streets, she knew she was already destroyed. Vincent had stolen her agency, her independence, her right to make her own choices. Even his generosity felt like a violation. She called him at midnight. "Emma," his voice was thick with sleep, but he answered on the first ring. "We need to talk. Now. I'll come to you." "No. The coffee shop on 5th and Broadway. 1 hour." Vincent arrived looking rumpled and worried, his usually perfect hair mussed from sleep. He slid into the booth across from her, and Emma had to steel herself against the concern in his eyes. "I know about my father's medical bills," she said without preamble. Vincent went very still. "Emma, how dare you?" Her voice was low, controlled, but vibrating with fury. "How dare you take away my choice, my agency, my right to make my own decisions? About my family? Your father was dying. That was my burden to carry, not yours to fix." Tears burned behind Emma's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Do you have any idea what you've done to me?" What it feels like to discover that everything good in my life is built on lies? I never lied to you. Omission is still deception. Vincent, you let me believe I was managing on my own, that my father's improvement was medical progress, not your charity. Vincent reached across the table, but Emma pulled back.
Don't touch me.
Emma, please, I love you. The words hung in the air between them like a grenade with the pin pulled. Emma felt something break inside her chest. Love, she laughed, and the sound was hollow. You don't love me, Vincent. You love the idea of saving me. You love being the white knight who rescues the poor girl from her circumstances. But that's not love, that's ego. That's not true, isn't it? Tell me, would you have been interested in me if I hadn't been broken, if I hadn't needed saving? Vincent's silence was answer enough. Emma stood, her legs unsteady. I want you to stop the payments. All of them. Emma, my father will die with his dignity intact, which is more than I can say for myself right now. She looked down at him, this powerful man who suddenly seemed small and lost. I never want to see you again, Vincent. Not in my office, not in my building, not in my life. If you truly care about me at all, you'll respect that. She walked out into the night, leaving Vincent sitting alone in the fluorescent-lit coffee shop. 2 years later, Emma had rebuilt her life piece by piece. Her father had passed away 6 months after she ended things with Vincent, but he had died at home, surrounded by love. His medical care funded by a combination of insurance, community fundraising, and Emma's own determination. The Mobile Learning Project had evolved into a non-profit organization that Emma ran from a small office in Brooklyn. The work was challenging and underfunded, but it was hers. She had convinced herself she was happy until the morning her assistant knocked on her door with an expression Emma couldn't read. There's someone here to see you, she said quietly. He says he's an old friend. Emma looked up from her grant applications to see Vincent Kane standing in her doorway. He looked different. Older. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. His perfect composure seemed fractured somehow. Hello, Emma. Need to leave. I know. But first, I need you to hear something. Vincent stepped into her office, closing the door behind him. Richard Blackwood is dead. Emma's pen slipped from her fingers, clattering onto the grant application she had been reviewing. What? Richard Blackwood is dead, Vincent repeated, his voice hollow. Heart attack 3 days ago. They found something in his office afterward. Evidence of what he did to us? I don't understand. Vincent pulled out a manila envelope, placed it on Emma's desk. Richard orchestrated everything. The media leak, the timing, even the investigator who told you about your father's medical payments. He wanted to destroy our relationship because he saw you as a threat to his control over me. Emma's hands trembled as she opened the envelope. Inside were printed emails, financial records, and a detailed plan written in Richard's handwriting. Her breath caught as she read her own name, her father's name, strategies for eliminating the Sterling problem. He knew your father was responding well to treatment, Vincent continued. He threatened to stop the payments unless you broke things off with me, publicly, brutally. The papers fell from Emma's hands. How long have you known? Since the day after you walked out of that coffee shop. I hired investigators to find out why you had changed so suddenly, why you said those things. It took them 18 months. To uncover Richard's involvement, Emma stood abruptly, pacing to the window that overlooked the Brooklyn street where children played while waiting for her mobile learning unit to arrive. So you knew, she said without turning around. For over a year, you knew why I really left, and you said nothing. What was I supposed to say? I discovered you were being manipulated? That would have sounded like another manipulation. You needed to heal from what Richard did to you, to us. And what about what you did to me? Emma spun to face him. You still paid my father's bills without my knowledge. You still took away my choice. Your father was dying. That doesn't justify. Yes, it does. Vincent's composure finally cracked. I watched my mother die of cancer when I was 16 because we couldn't afford proper treatment. I swore I would never let that happen to someone I cared about if I had the power to prevent it. The raw pain in his voice stopped Emma's anger, cold. She had never heard Vincent speak of his family, had never seen him vulnerable like this. "You never told me about your mother. I don't tell anyone about my mother. But you deserve to know why I did what I did, even if you hate me for it." They stood in silence, the weight of 2 years of hurt and misunderstanding pressing down between them. Emma studied Vincent's face, noting the new lines of exhaustion, the way his shoulders seemed to carry invisible burdens. "Richard's dead," she said quietly. "Yes, and you came here to tell me the truth. I came here to apologize, and to ask for something impossible, which is—" Vincent took a step closer, but kept his distance. "Forgiveness. Not for us, not for what we might have been. Just forgiveness, so we can both move forward without carrying this poison." Emma looked at the evidence scattered across her desk, proof of Richard's manipulation, of Vincent's desperate attempt to save her father, of the complex web of love and control that had entangled them all. "I forgave you months ago," she said finally. The anger was easier to carry than the grief. For what we lost, for what we might have been. If we had been braver, if we had trusted each other instead of letting fear make our decisions. Vincent's eyes searched her face. "Emma, what if I told you I never stopped loving you? I'd say that love isn't always enough. What if I told you I'm selling Kane Industries, that I'm starting over, building something smaller, something focused on the work that matters instead of just profit?" Emma's breath caught. "Why? Because you were right. I did love the idea of saving you more than I loved you. And I want to become the kind of man who deserves your love, not the kind who tries to buy it." Emma moved to her desk, picked up one of the grant applications she had been working on. This family in Detroit, they have 3 kids who are brilliant, but can't access quality education because of where they live. "My mobile unit could change their lives, but I need $50,000 to expand the program. I'll write you a check right now." "No," Emma's voice was firm. "I need a partner, not a benefactor. Someone who will work beside me, not above me. Someone who understands that real change happens one community at a time, not from corporate boardrooms." Vincent was quiet for a long moment. "Are you offering me a job, Miss Sterling?" "I'm offering you a chance to be the man you said you want to become. The pay is terrible. The hours are impossible. The work is heartbreaking and beautiful, and will probably consume your entire life."
"When do I start?"
Emma smiled, the first genuine smile she had given him since that night in the coffee shop. "Now, if you want, it's a community meeting in Queens tonight. Single mothers trying to get better educational resources for their kids. They could use someone who understands how to turn vision into reality." Vincent walked around the desk, stopped just close enough that Emma could smell his familiar cologne mixed with something new and certainty. "Hope, the scent of a man willing to be remade." "Emma," he said quietly, "if we do this, if we work together, I need you to know that I'm still going to love you. I can't turn that off. And I need you to know that I don't trust easily anymore. It might take years before I can believe in us again. I have years. It might not work. We might destroy each other instead of healing. We might. We also might discover something extraordinary." Emma looked at this man who had been her salvation and her destruction, who had broken her heart and was now offering to help her rebuild not just her life, but her dreams on a foundation of equality instead of charity. "Partners?" she asked. Extending her hand, Vincent took it, his fingers warm and steady against hers. Partners. As they walked out into the Brooklyn afternoon, heading toward a future neither could predict, but both were brave enough to face together, Emma realized that sometimes love isn't about grand gestures or perfect timing. Sometimes love is about 2 broken people choosing to be broken together, choosing to build something new from the pieces of what they used to be. Sometimes love is about learning that fairy tales don't exist in the real world, but real love does, and it's messier, and harder, and more beautiful than any story ever written.